Perhaps now in this light with you and the tutu and the water playing off your seaweed, maybe I could love you. Maybe I was lying, because when you do love someone, sometimes you say you don't because you're playing hard to get, playing a game.
Games?
Yeah, I was just playing a game with you.
Love games?
That's right, love games, Greg.
Love games? Do you love me? Are you playing your love games with me? I just want to know what to do, because I need your love.
Hey everybody, this is John, and new negative scope. Isn't this great? Negative kaleidoscope, or negative whatever filter on my phone. And if I have to say, so myself, I look quite beautiful in this light. Last night you might have caught my video of blubbering like a fucking retard, and that's fine. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you appreciated the perspective from a privileged white man in America, of course. And don't get me wrong, there is a huge white privilege I had last night, not automatically getting detained or locked up or killed by the cops. That, as I said in the video, I greatly appreciate. But no, today we're going to talk about the age-old parable of love. Love and everything in between. Last night, amongst other things, the whole shit show culminated with the cherry on top of me basically finally making the decision of, getting rid of my emotions for a person in the regards of love. And I think it's only fair to them and you and all the other people who ask, why not love, John? Why not give love a chance? Give peace a chance. Well, first of all, I gave peace a chance, asshole. I gave peace a chance for 30-something years, and now it's time for war. Now it's time for aggression. Now it's time for escalation. Because not only in the art group, artists trying to make a living creating art, I didn't give that peace for 30-something years, but yeah, a good 4 years, 5 years, I guess. I mean, I can't remember when I first started being active in that group and seeing, the transformation of what it became, which was a shit show. I'm talking about 36 years in America. Last night, if anything, was just more of a proving ground of why I need to get the fuck out of the country. The cops stopping me for just walking down the road and not doing anything crazy. Really put it in perspective and brought it home as to why I need to just get the fuck out of this country. But also why I need to get the fuck out of this country is another little thing that's been going on my entire life. The love games. As you might have heard the beautiful performance by old Greg, love games are everywhere. Love games happen all the time. Love games happen in every kind of relationships you can form with people of American descent in America. The social construct of America alone has put so much of an emphasis on finding someone, finding a mate, finding a wife, getting a house, getting kids, getting a car, getting all this. Where we're indoctrinated from birth to love, to find that one and whatever, and get you a good mortgage going, and get you a good credit score, and get you a fucking, shared bank account and all that stuff. Be responsible. Be a goddamn real American man. Go out there, get a real job. Go out there, get a real credit card. Go out there, spend, and provide for your family, right? This is the way it's always been. That's the way it's always going to be in America. Because capitalism is the linchpin in the fucking empire. The more money you owe, the more they own you. The more money you owe, the more likely you are to go to that fucking shit job, to go to that shit fucking wage maker, and fucking sit there and cow down to the system. And amongst all that, of course, we have the great parable of men and women in America. And traditionally, what was it? Men, make the money, bring home the bacon, the women stay barefoot and pregnant, and blah, blah, blah. Well, then we had this little thing called the Women's Revolution, where, women got the right to vote and work and all that stuff. And of course, then you go into World War II, where all the men were off killing Nazis and Japs. And, we were having a gay old time overseas, stopping the evil empire and then making the evil empire our home back home. Which was, women went to the workforce for the first time. They went out in droves. Dave Chappelle covered this in his comedy special. I highly recommend you watch it. But he broke it down in a very poetic way, and this is kind of based on that. And for the first time in history, women were going out working and doing their jobs. And, basically they were the only ones at home keeping the war machine turning. Very huge contribution by women during that time during World War II. And if you don't know much about World War II, if all you know is just like, oh, Hitler showed up, he was a bad guy and we killed him, then you should really delve into World War II. It was probably the last morally feasible and morally justifiable war before the military-industrial complex took over. And during that time, I believe it may have been Eisenhower that warned about the military-industrial complex. If you don't know what that is, you should go get educated about that, because it's a very real thing. And I think with Iraq, Syria, all the shit we've seen since World War II, Vietnam, you can see the military-industrial complex in action. But that goes back to, let me get back to the subject of today's sermon and or rant by a crazy white guy on the internet. Love games, love bullshit. A little of my history. The first major love I had was a young woman, and we were very much in love, and it was around the time when I was 18 or 20 years old. And the first real true betrayal of love would have to be the relationship I had before then. The relationship I had before then was a girl that I had met through a chat line on the phone because I couldn't get out. Back in the day, we had like little phone dating chat lines that you could meet people and talk to them. Well, in North Carolina, it became a very, and around the Charlotte area, it became a very, closed social club on this thing that I didn't know about. It was kind of like an internet chat room, but on the phone. Anyways, I met a girl through there. We started dating, never met each other. It was kind of pathetic. But that was all kids had to do back then because cars weren't readily available. If you didn't have a car or transportation, you were kind of fucked, blah, blah, blah. And she ended up, going and hanging out with a bisexual dude, a transsexual dude, and ended up leaving me for him. So that was my first burn. Second burn came with the woman I mentioned before, who was a very deep love of mine. That was my first, really deep love of my life. And she ended up one day deciding to not tell me she was on birth control, or she stopped taking birth control, and I went to have sex with her, did my business inside of her, and then come to find out she was off birth control. Well, she didn't tell me she was off birth control, and she was basically trying to set me up to put a baby in her belly so I'd be locked in. That's how I take it as. And the reason why I take it as that is at first I had my doubts, and then afterwards, come to find out she hooked up with a guy, and what do you know? He ended up getting her pregnant, and she ended up locking him into a situation where he had to support her. That's a very real thing with women, and if you don't believe it, then I don't know what to tell you. But if you've ever experienced life, there's women like that out there who will make a man get them pregnant so they could trap them in a relationship. Because they use love as a weapon, and they use the stigma as a weapon, or basically the social expectations imparted on men. Men who want to have, if they have a baby, even by mistake, they want to take care of that baby. And they use that as a weapon to do what? Kill men and spiritually, mentally, and enslave them. So flash forward several years later. After that, I really didn't have serious relationships or impart my relationships or whatever. Life kind of took over. I wasn't really in a position to have relationships. And I can't really say I was fixing me. During that whole time, I wasn't fixing me. I was just surviving the American system. So years and years later, I met a girl. We ended up dating. We ended up going into an apartment together. And we stayed together for about a little over a year. And the reason why we broke up is because I came home one day and I found her ex-boyfriend, who didn't have a job, by the way, sitting on the couch hanging out with her. And they, in the air, there was just a permutation of, I knew they had been fucking or doing something. She sucked his dick, fucked him or something. I don't know. And at that point, I really learned my first lessons of self-control. Just like I talked about last night with the cops. If I didn't have composure or self-control, I would have been killed. I could have been beaten. That's just reality of the situation. And if you deny that and you doubt that, then you don't live in America. You're not an American. You don't know what the fuck America's like. Especially in the deep South, or the South, as it were. But she We dated for about a year and a half, and I just ended the relationship because I knew something was going on between them. And even when I asked her, is that your ex-boyfriend? She lied to me and said, no, it's just a friend. He's just a friend. Why are you so worried? He's just a friend. Don't worry about that. He's just a friend. And women caught in lies, of course, will always tell another lie to cover up the lie. Women who lie, men who lie, it's just constant, dude. You'll get a lie covering up a lie, covering up a lie, covering up a lie, covering up a lie. And then eventually they just told so many lies they can't keep track of them all. And then next thing you know, they're falling to pieces right in front of you. But anyways, I digress. So we ended the relationship. She ended up moving out of the house, or moving out of the apartment one day when I was at work, taking everything. I handed her money to keep the power bill on because it was in her name, because I bearing in mind we were in a relationship and I trusted her. She turned right around, shut all the power off, after taking my money, cut the power off that day, took it, paid the bill off, shut the power off, didn't keep it on. I begged her, or I tried to negotiate with her, like, if I give you the money for the bill to pay the whole bill, will you keep the power on? No, that wasn't good enough. And left me there with no washing machine, no dishes, no nothing. She left some damn couches and stuff like that we had gotten for free that her dad brought us. And she went to go live with her mom and dad. And cut the power off and everything, left it as is. 3 months later, and, bearing in mind I didn't have a car, we both paid for cars, she took the cars, and then I, had no way to work. So I was working about 3 or 4 miles away from work. So then I had to not only not have power, I didn't have any washing machines or anything like that to wash my clothes. I had to wash clothes by hand. I had nothing to prepare my food with. She took all the pots and pans and dishes. No food in the apartment. Nothing. And now my income all of a sudden had to pay for all the bills. And she fucking sit there and, basically ran off, took everything, left me for dead. But unfortunately for her, I'm an adaptable survivor, and I made it. I thrived. I started walking back and forth to work. It was backbreaking. It was hard. It was very difficult. And I was completely alone during this time for like 3 months. I didn't have any communication really with the outside world. I didn't talk to anybody really in the apartment complex, none of that. So 3 months later, I get a phone call. She's basically begging me to come back because things went wrong at that, at her mom and dad's house. They were going to lock her up and all this stuff. And at that point, I let her come back simply because of financial, burdens. Like, it was very hard to keep my apartment and pay all the bills and everything with just what I was making at my former job. So I let her come back. And I figured it would also be a nice growing point for me as a human being to actually, maybe be the bigger man and, conquer some things and learn some things about myself and how to put aside things, which I did, bearing in mind I did. But, over the next roughly 3 to 4 years of us being together, we weren't in a relationship or anything. She was allowed to have her own space. I gave her the bigger bedroom in the apartment. I let her take that. I let her basically, do as she wished. I never put any pressure on her. I never abused her. I never did anything. It was basically a mutually beneficial situation, I thought. Well, throughout the next 4 or 5 years, and I've told this story before, so I'll amend it. But essentially, she took everything she could to psychologically tear me down whenever she could. And eventually, before my suicide attempt and my collapse as a human being, about 6 months before, we had an incident where she was trying to tell me she would wash the dishes, and I told her I wouldn't. And I politely kind of stepped in the way and kind of moved her out of the way. I didn't shove her. And then she took that as abuse. Now, another reason why this kind of comes back is some other things she said, but I'll get into that here in a second. She took that as abuse and essentially tried to say she was going to call the cops and tell them that I beat her and falsify a police report and then have me locked up. That's when my care and compassion and everything, anything left I had toward mercy for her disappeared. And she essentially tried to record conversations and get me to say something stupid so she could turn it as evidence to have me, arrested. I wasn't that stupid and I never gave her the evidence, which I'm sure was infuriating to her. As a matter of fact, that night when she claimed that, I called the cops and let them know exactly what she was doing and told them that I never touched her. I never beat her. I never did anything. So that all broke down. And then, of course, my mental state from that point forward started to become like a fractured, fragmented mess. I mean, it had been years in the making, trust me. But after that point, I think that's when the true decline of my mentality began. Because it's like I realized that at that point, after all these years, after everything I did for her, after everything I tried to do for her, after every time I tried to be the bigger, better man and step away, she was still a little girl who never grew up and was a fucking cunt. And it just fucking killed me, man. It essentially killed me. From that moment forward, I don't think I was the same. From that moment forward, I don't think I was the same toward women or people in general. Bearing in mind, too, the love games extend to friends. Right now, I'm currently in a situation that I was brought into by a friend who promised me a year and a half ago, that things would be different, that he would do things that he didn't do. And essentially, this situation has degraded into me being the responsible one and him not doing what he has to do to take care of his mother and everything else, which is understandable. I get that. But the other situation that happened with a friend was a long time ago where me and his mother were, after my mom died, I ended up getting with them. And we ended up, going into a situation where it turned into basically a shit show. Where I lost a lot of time creating and doing art and getting my shit together because of a friend that I loved. And I hold no ill will toward him or no ill will toward my other friend right now. But in the same turn, it's like I realize very, very starkly that love is a weapon. Love is a weapon that can be used to kill you. Love is a weapon that can be used to turn you into, basically puppets for whatever these people want to do to manipulate. The pimps and the snakes of the world, the people who don't want to work, the people who, all these people. I've seen it happen with my ex-girlfriend and her relationship that she chose over me, which was a guy that lived at home with his mom. He was 40-something years old. He didn't pay his bills. And he had 5 kids that he didn't pay child support on. I saw that happen with her. She chose that for herself. And she brought that into her life, and they dated for a long time. And they probably dated for a year while she was there. He held a job for 1 month. And in that time, he got fired from that job for sexually harassing a coworker. Yeah, that's the kind of person she left me for. Now, this comes to the person I'm talking to now, which is a good person and a great person, but I can't play these love games anymore. And that's what I tried to explain to her, but she doesn't seem to understand what I'm talking about. Well, maybe this video today will help her out, and maybe it'll help you guys out to understand why I'm so cold and callous at times and why I'm so, the fucked up way I am, which is fine if I am the way I am, as long as I'm not really truly hurting people. I mean, I say hurtful things sometimes, mind you, but that is just a blowback and a rebellion against the SJW and the bullshit we have online now, where you can't talk about anything, you can't say anything, you can't do anything without either trolls or fucking SJWs coming out the woodwork to crucify you. And I hope they do. I hope all of them come to my page and come to my profiles and spread their viscera so I can fucking encounter the demon or the stupidity and the retardation face to face. And I could stop them wherever they fucking pop up, because that's what we need to do as reasonable and sane people, is to engage these people more, to prove that they're fucking stupid and ignorant, and get this shit out of our society and our system. Because it ain't helping nothing. It really isn't. But anyways, me, old Greg, where's the mask? Sarah supporter, I got it sitting over here under a trash bag, I'm sorry. Sarah supporters say, have a nice day. Watch out for love games. Watch out for the perpetual games of women and men around you who are looking to take your heart and use it as a goddamn weapon. New and negative scope, because this is a negative message, and apparently I'm a negative person, and we all got to be positive online, right? We all have to be happy, shiny, good times, and ignore the world burning around us. Because it's supposed to be a safe place for people to come and watch their cat memes and their George W. Bush memes and their Trump memes and jack off. and look at hot Instagram thoughts and, you know, fucking men with big biceps and tribal armband tattoos and leave stupid ass comments like, thirsty, ooh, I'd love to fuck you. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good day. And may Tupac bless the path for you always. Or whatever.
That's right, love games, Greg.